Hello, my name is Lance Cummings, and I will be using this video to introduce to you briefly how applied learning works in professional writing classrooms. Regardless of what professional writing class you are currently taking, this introduction will help you understand better the different projects and activities that your instructor will have you do in most professional writing classrooms. Most likely, you've heard about applied learning in other classes here at UNCW. After all, one of UNCW's core values is a commitment to the journey of learning. A journey that begins in the university but doesn't end there. In other words, UNCW emphasizes your journey to inquire and discover, and through these processes, better yourselves and your communities. In other words, you are not just here to collect knowledge, you are creating knowledge and making it do things in the world. The purpose of college is not simply to acquire knowledge or a piece of paper. The purpose of college is to explore and discover new ideas. The sciences are the disciplines most often associated with inquiry. As a science student, you will likely not just memorize facts or equations, but actually explore and perform these experiments in labs. In fact, many would say this is the best way to learn science, to ask questions. So let's talk a little bit more about what inquiry actually means. If someone asked you why you're in college, most likely you would say, "I'm here to learn." But what does that actually mean? This is a very general word in English and can refer to many different types of learning. Oftentimes we think of learning as simply memorizing facts, formulas, and ideas. I've learned calculus if I memorize all the formulas and work all the problems in the textbook. I've learned history if I can recite all the facts and events exactly as they are in the textbook or lecture. Or I've learned grammar if I can identify the parts of speech and their relationships. But we might also say that you are here to acquire knowledge or skills. In other words, you're able to use what you've acquired naturally in real situations. Just like a tool, for example, this wrench, once I've learned how to use it, I can use it in multiple contexts. If you've acquired methods of analysis to apply to difficult problems, then you should be able to adapt and use these as you encounter problems in your future job or community. I've acquired calculus if I can use that knowledge to analyze statistics. I've acquired historical ways of thinking if I've learned to analyze the historical context of different situations and apply them to the present or to our interpretations of the past. Or I've acquired formalized grammar if I can write appropriately in formal situations. But we still haven't reached the level of inquiry. One can also say that in college we learn to explore the world in many different ways, using the knowledge we've learned and acquired. The biologist explores the natural world by applying knowledge through observation and experiments, for example in a lab or in the jungle. Or a mathematician explores different ways to analyze data. Or the writer explores the different ways of writing sentences in different situations, creating style. Ultimately, our goal is to discover new ideas, new ways of doing things, or new ways of looking at the world. A doctor finds a different way of treating a health problem. A chemist discovers a better formula for Windex. A literature scholar discovers a new thesis about a novel, or a poet discovers a new way to write a poem. The difference between writing and all these other fields is simply this: everyone writes. No matter what you do in the future, you will have to write or compose in many different types of genres, style, and media. You may not know exactly what the idea you want to communicate is, or even how you want to communicate it before you begin writing. Oftentimes, we discover what we have to say in the process of writing. In the field of rhetoric, this aspect of composing is often called invention. In fact, as you will likely learn, this idea about writing as inquiry has been around for thousands of years, starting, some would say, with the Greek philosopher Aristotle, or perhaps even before him. Simply put, sometimes we have to play around to figure out just what it is we have to say and how to say it. A web designer may have to play around with his design features before discovering the perfect layout. A writer might have to write pages of seemingly nonsense before discovering the central idea to their essay. There are also many methods that help guide our invention process, often called heuristics. Many of these you will learn in this class. That's why this class will look much more like a workshop than a 19th century classroom. This is how a lot of classes tend to work when we think of the lecture hall, where half the course is taken up with you sitting and listening to a lecturer. But the writing classroom is much different, with 75% of the class driven by you. This is why having your laptop or computer in class is so important. You're not just regurgitating what your instructor says. You are actually exploring the world and creating knowledge with your instructor and classmates. These same principles work in an online writing course, perhaps even more so. To that effect, you'll be asked to do many things in this writing class that only make sense if you see writing as a form of inquiry. For example, free writing, where you sit down and write as much as possible about a certain topic within a certain amount of time. Now, you might end up writing tons and tons of nonsense, but there could be one or two great ideas in there from which to start a draft. We also do things like idea mapping, where you try to map out the relationships between different ideas, topics, and viewpoints using pictures, words, squares, circles, and lines. There's writing activities that you'll do every day, where your instructor will give you ways of analyzing or thinking about your topic or your ideas or your paper that help you see things in a different way and hopefully develop your ideas or think of something new to put in your paper. And of course, we do multiple drafts. You're not likely to know exactly what it is that you want to write about, what your main idea or thesis is in your first draft. But as you talk with your instructor and you do peer review and talk with your classmates, your idea is going to evolve. And by the time you get to the final draft, it's going to look a lot different than your rough draft. And then we also do a lot of drastic revision or remediation and multimodal work, where you take a text, something that you've already done, and you do some drastic changes to it. You can either cut it up and rearrange it in different ways, write it for a different audience from a different point of view, or even put it into a video or into some sort of recording or PowerPoint. Most importantly, for many of the assignments in your professional writing classes, you won't know exactly what to write about beforehand. As with many real-life writing situations, professional writing assignments can be very difficult at first. But the goal is that you'll be able to apply rhetorical theory and strategies to many different kinds of professional writing situations, whether they be a business letter or business proposal, a lab report, a designed document like a sign or brochure or even a PowerPoint, or a website, or simply getting something done in the world. So no matter what professional writing class you are taking this semester, the best projects, or A-grade projects, will do something in the real world with a real audience. And ultimately, learning to use rhetoric as inquiry will serve you well for many years, even after graduation.